Okay, so you can see that this session is recorded. Wonderful to see familiar faces, bodies, and letters as well. Hi, wow, I haven't seen you for yonks. Wonderful, wonderful seeing Joanna as well, and the clouds. More clouds over there too. Wiley, welcome. Okay, welcome to, which is not the beginning, but it is a beginning of sorts of introducing this project, but we've already had a session before that, which was difficultated by Roseanne Reynolds. And this session really is introducing the project, but in particular, I suppose, maybe setting the tone or discussing thinking together about what kind of space we want this to be. And maybe we can also, I don't know whether we should start by introducing the other than human in our room. Anneke, what do you think? Would you like to say more about that?
Sure. So my iPhone is strapped to our balcony so that you can see where we are. We're here in Kalk Bay, and some people are able to be here in person, and others are joining online, but we thought that it's a way to invite this space into this online space.
Thank you. So Anneke is the research assistant MO then of this project, of which I'm going to say a little bit more about in a minute. But I also know that Roseanne Reynolds is going to shoot off from home in this direction in a minute. So I think it will be just good to start with some introductions, and then I'll say a little bit more about what we've been discussing and hoping in terms of what kind of 3 days this is going to be. And I know that, and we know that you won't be here all the time, and you'll be zooming in and out. And that's also exactly the kind of space we want it to be: informal, conversational, personal. And that has to do with the kind of project this is, which is building a network. It's about building a collective of humans and other than humans and. So, and some of it also, and I think that's really important, is the whole idea of the importance of the materiality of atmospheres, of what we thought we might want to do more than anything else is try, and you cannot replicate being together as fleshy human beings in spaces, but in a sense do that as well. So if you had all been here in this amazing room in Kalk Bay, in the Western Cape, I don't know whether you can see it, it's empty, but of course it's not empty. We've actually got quite a few cockroaches here, so, but these are the ones we can spot. And spot no longer, but there of course is an awful lot going on that we cannot see or sense with our human senses. But what would it have been like if you had been in this room? You would have gone to the toilet, you would have, probably, you might have just gone and get some water, or it would have been much more informal in lots of ways. And also thinking much more and sensing in the moment. And what we were hoping is that we could do this more as well. So don't feel, we would love you all to put your Zoom, what is it, your what is it called, your videos on. And then also if you just have to leave, or if you want to have your breakfast, or if you want a cup of coffee and it doesn't taste very good, so you have to quickly pick up and you know, put some other stuff in the coffee that makes it drinkable, please, that's really what we were hoping for, that bodies come in and out, and people that are almost in pajamas, as in the previous session. So I'm just going to start with introducing Roseanne, for the simple reason that Roseanne can then hop in a car and to come to us safely, I hope, so don't drive too fast. So I am, for my sins, the principal investigator of this project. That was funded by the National Research Foundation of South Africa. And this is sort of the beginning of our second year, but should have been the end of our last year. But, you know, I don't have to explain why timelines don't really work at the moment as they are planned. And Roseanne is the co-PI of this project and has been heavily involved in organizing this event. And Annika is, as I said, Research Assistant Plus, and has actually helped us in such a way that we can sit here. And until very late yesterday, we actually weren't even sure that we could host online for boring reasons we won't bother you with. But yeah, thanks to this amazing, competent woman, we actually are able to have this seminar. So thank you profusely for that, Annika. So Roseanne Reynolds is a lecturer at the University of Cape Town in early childhood education, but again, plus. You might like to say a little bit more about that as well. Would you like to?
Oh, no.
No? But very much. And involved in a pedagogy called Philosophy for Children, which, as if people stay on at 12 o'clock South African time, you will see that it is not a pedagogy that is just for children, but it's a pedagogy that opens up inquiries and spaces where we think together. And as Roseanne was pointing out earlier today, normalize disagreement and provoke each other to think differently and listen in a particular way. And we deliberately thought it would be good to start off with that at 12 o'clock. So I'm already sort of starting with the program, but I hope that you'll be back in time for that, Roseanne. And in that workshop, we're going to really concentrate on or focus on these key concepts for this seminar, which is returning as a methodology and questioning. And we're going to return to a picture book that most of you probably are very familiar with, which is Where the Wild Things Are. And definitely Joanne knows. We've written a lot and thought a lot and experienced a lot. Not only that, it's also for me going back to when I met Joanna for the very first time when I was doing a workshop on Where the Wild Things Are. Wildness is a very intriguing concept. We're also diffracting through Halberstam's work on the wild things. So as a lot in the program, the timings are incredibly flexible. Sometimes we might want to finish earlier or take it somewhere else outside the Zoom room. And we'll just see how that goes. But for now, the whole idea is of, and that was also the earlier session, is this, the whole idea of the collective is getting to know each other differently and better, maybe, whatever that better means. And so this seminar is not about information exchange, about we've got a knowledgeable experts on post-qualitative research, and they are going to tell you how it's all done. And this is what you have to do when you do post-qualitative research. But obviously, there are lots of different ideas that are floating in the room that might be very helpful for you. But we want to engage with it in a different way, also in a post-qualitative way. So built into the program, we're going to have a look at that in more detail later on, is also, well, what else is going on in this program and how has that been put together? But I first of all would just love to invite you to say or to connect up with maybe something around you in the room or outside of the room that strikes you and that you would like to share with us. as a way of introducing yourself, and put it in chat. And then if you feel like it, I would never put anybody on the spot. Then you can say a little bit more about what strikes you about whatever it is you've put on in the chat, and how might that relate to getting to know you differently, better, as part of this collective. And just to explain the collective, when we originally, now I'll say that more, I'll say that later, just because you're probably already thinking, oh heck, what am I now going to find and put in the chat? So let's do that first. Okay. Need more thinking time? I've just been welcoming Teresa Joza, just arriving from Joburg, and she's going to join us in a minute. Okay. So as people are thinking, I will show you. Wonderful. Maybe as people are still, would it be okay to continue, or do you would like some more time? Anybody? Can wait, we can wait more. No, you can always just send it in a direct message to either Annika or myself. Lovely. Okay, so we'll go through each of those, and if you want to say more about that, it's great. If not, that's also fine. And it might be a good idea to start, which actually also for me, very, very useful, what you say there or ask for. So could someone say in one sentence why qualitative had to be posted? I am new. And then you follow that up by, I have to be gone by 11. So a response before then would be great. So, so one of the things that I suppose we also pick up later is, how do questions work? You know, so maybe we could all think together about what does this question do? How does that put any of us in whatever position to put something like that in one sentence in a time frame? So how does it work? Bonke, you might want to say a little bit more about it, or I mean, I fully appreciate and understand the desire for an answer, but from whom and why?
Thank you, Karen. Yeah, you know, I mean, as a dancer, I also feel like I'm battling with the idea of so many talking and so many, you know, it's all up here. And when I dance, I get it. It's in one space. And I guess that is probably the greatest question that I have for myself. How am I substantiating in words that phenomenon? Because one can't just go new age about it, and I don't wish to. So in the and I would also, I'm also truly interested in the term post-qualitative, and I appreciate that one sentence is not going to do it, but I'm just wondering, maybe somebody can.
Okay, see whether anybody can. Anybody who would like to respond? Not necessarily giving a sentence, but maybe respond to the query in itself. That's also a possibility.
Should I try to say something?
Yeah, soon. Lovely. Yeah.
Well,
Please.
I think for me, well, I don't know, there is a, well, if I go in this, if it's post or qualitative or post qualitative, for me, the shift is maybe from the representative to the performative. And it was for me that I went into this, you know, before when I did research, I have a research background, which is in a way qualitative generally, and I have a background from film or creative. And they didn't mix before. And basically this step allowed me to mix sort of creative performative processes and research outputs together with the scientific area of my life or something. So this basically allowed me this step to make that connection, and that was sort of the most important thing in that way. So it's in a way, and I kind of connect this to this idea of it's not about sort of representing the qualities of a phenomena. It's about sort of producing something performative, which is then somewhere in between the arts and the science for me.
Thank you, Zern. Anyone else? I think what our bodies express maybe is the impossibility of the one sentence. And because there are so many dimensions, and I think what has been very helpful, soon, what you were saying about the non-representational and the performativity. And I suppose for me, why I sort of resist, because that's what I'm doing to give it even my ideas about it in even more sentences, is that it already puts a representational model in the Zoom room, right? So it's like, how can we represent post-qualitative research through the words in a sentence? And interestingly enough, you you would say, well, actually, I don't want to do that because, you know, also following on from the earlier session today, it's about, you know, you're interested in the body and sort of troubling the binary as well of words and bodies and all of that. I think what maybe the response is one where the hesitancy of putting into words something that is so complex and so radically shifting ontologies and epistemologies, where the claim to know changes, because also how bodies themselves are theorized and practiced differently. So maybe Donna Haraway would say you'd have to stay with the trouble and keep, you know, it's a very long term process. It didn't actually emerge so much this morning, but I think in when people are new to it, which is there ever a moment that you're not new to it? Which will be an interesting question to explore as well, because new and old seems to be that there is this kind of temporality of getting rid of what was and now. And it's also in the returning glossary entry we're going to look at this afternoon, where I actually acknowledge Joanna Haynes, my friend and colleague, who's sitting for the Zoom room next to me, for the cut, what is it? Delete and replace kind
Delete
of.
and insert.
Delete and insert kind of attitude that is so often, oh, there's something new here and now we delete and insert, and as if we can get rid of the old. And it's much more troublesome than that, and we have to stay with that trouble. Anyone else responds? Oh, your hand is up, Joanna?
Well, it was up and then I took it down again. I really liked what Cern said. I thought, oh yeah, Cern, you're getting this conversation going here for me. And then when you spoke, Karen, I thought, oh no. Yeah, you know, the limitations of language. But it's what we've got, I guess, now with each other in this space. And when Cern was talking, I think what popped up for me and what other people report is this kind of noticing that other things are allowed, things that were banned before are kind of allowed. And yeah, just noticing how, and I mean, this is obviously from the point of view of the human kind of researcher, whether it's the doctoral researcher or the academic, right? Feeling, oh, I'm allowed to include or to refer or to, you know, or to move or to whatever it is. But yeah, so I'm stuck somewhere between what Cern said and what you were saying, Karen. And actually, I'm really interested in the question, and I want to thank Nobonke for bringing that question, because in a way I do find that it's a question that students will want some kind of answer to, and yeah, it can be really annoying when people just always refuse to kind of give you an answer of any kind.
Okay.
So I just want to say I have to go now, but thank you very much for your labor in trying to elucidate something that I have just recently met, and I'm excited about it. And it sounds like, you know, the performativity and the becoming is probably in line with where I begin to make sense of it for myself. So I just wanted to say, I'm sorry that I have to leave now, but thank you very much for your immaterial labor.
Thank you, and I hope to see you later in the seminar. Bye. Take care. Carol, you had your hand up. You need to unmute, I think. Ah, great.
Yeah, thanks. It's really nice to be here. It's actually really quite, yeah, it's quite moving to be within this sort of collective from connecting various different places and spaces. And I'm just sort of really glad that I can be part of this, because it's probably, I think it is the first thing that I've done of any sort of academic import for like 2.5, 3 months. So it feels like a really important moment for me. I guess I just wanted to respond to the question in two ways. The first one was that I felt an immediate resistance, and I think it goes back to what you were saying, Karen, about the questions that we've kind of grown up with through our academic life have always been about, here's a question, you need to respond to it in certain parameters and in the following way, and by this particular time, and that the kind of the answers are in some ways kind of framed by what we already know. And I think for me, post-qualitative, you know, in its linkages with material feminism and feminist posthumanisms, and lots of other ands as well, has allowed me to experiment with ways of producing knowledge, of thinking about how knowledge is produced, which in many ways, you know, not that long ago, and perhaps even in some contexts still, would be considered to be quite illegitimate. What you're doing is not right, it's not proper. And how can we then, if that's the case, how can we then rely on the knowledge that's been produced? So for me, kind of post-qual throws everything in terms of traditional modes of knowledge production into doubt, but which is a good thing, because then I think that makes us as post-qualitative researchers better able to, these are words from a different paradigm, if you like, but explain and justify why what we're doing is important. But actually, I do think that it is important to do that if we're setting out on a new kind of qualitative research adventure in the biggest sense, which I think we are collectively, then we do have to explain, I think, why that's necessary and why it's useful, and what it produces, you know, what it does in terms of kind of making us think differently and do knowledge differently. So I guess that's my sort of entrance into why I'm interested in post-qualitative research.
Thanks very much, Carol. Anyone who would like, because we can now follow on, if you feel that you can follow on introducing yourselves through connecting up with Carol, that would be great. Making connections, or connections that are always already there, but articulating them. Maybe I don't know, Joanna, about your horseshoe? You would like to introduce yourself with a horseshoe?
Yeah, here's the horseshoe.
Uh-huh.
You can see the. Now I found originally, I mean, it's up on my shelf here in and I found it, I think, in the garden here not long after we moved here. But today I pulled it off the shelf because yeah, it's very rusty, and you can just really see the holes where the nails would go into the horse's hoof, and the sort of fixings. And I was just really struck by this as a kind of shackling, you know, it was like a kind of thinking about how you go sometimes into a museum of torture and you see these things and you think, how could anybody kind of do that? And I just had a moment of, as I picked it up, you know, how is this possible? That horses are kind of put into shoes and bridles and all of the paraphernalia of kind of control, really. I was just struck by that. And I suppose this process of being invited to kind of pick something up is I think it's incredibly valuable, because it's like a sort of, so much of the time there is a walking around without really noticing, I think, or there are objects that are so familiar in your space, right? That there's in the UK culture, there's an association of horseshoes with luck, and you have to hold it up that way, not that way. Yeah, I think that's probably all I want to say just now. Thank you. Thank you very much. It's so nice to be here and so nice to see people. Yeah, it's a very special occasion. Thank you very much to everyone who's organised it.
Thank you. And you continuing to engage with shoes.
And feet.
And feet of any kind. But it, you know, that raises so the taken for grantedness of things, people, you know, all sorts, and how important that is for research, which connects also with what Carol was talking about. So yeah, and of course you are very much entangled with this project, both of you, Carol and Joanna. You know, you're sort of members of this collective, and then there are also lots of friends of the collective.
I'm happy to connect. Hello. Can you hear? Everyone can hear okay? My name's Catherine. I'm from Australia. Today's Australia Day, which is a funny day over here. So I think if there's any other Aussies in the room, I just firstly would like to acknowledge the traditional owners of the land and say that the land was never ceded, especially on Australia Day. Thank you for the opportunity to look for objects. I found these 3 objects that I have that I never really realised are there, but what I noticed about it is how many hours I have looked at those objects when I'm thinking about things. Wouldn't that be interesting to actually, I stare at them all the time, and different things jump out at me, obviously when I'm thinking about my work or other things. So they actually have more significance than I've ever realised until I've been given that moment to look at them. Mm-hmm. And I love that there's 3. So the thing that jumped out for me was the 3, and the colour purple of the crystal was really special when I looked at it too. So it was very good. That's all. Hello, connecting. It's lovely to see faces of people I feel I've read so much work on. It's like, oh, they're real. You know, even, you know, to hear people, Carol, it's lovely to see your face, to see you as a real person. I love your work. So thank you. It's quite a surreal moment for me too. Thank you.
Yes. Who can connect with that? Beautiful. So the images of the objects are in Padlet, in case you hadn't spotted it. Anybody else connecting? Who would like to connect?
Hi, I can, because I'm from Australia as well. So I'm coming from Gadigal land of the Eora Nation, and it is survival day for a lot of friends and community members but it was such an honor to be able to join you on Zoom. I pulled this up from my desk, which is a vase that I brought back from New Zealand actually, and on the surface it's really smooth and it looks quite pristine, and on the base it's very organic and quite rough, and a lot's going on. And I just thought, you know, going back to that question initially about you know, kind of bridging the gap between, you know, what's new and what is how we can work with humans on Zoom and in text. I'm doing my PhD at the moment, so really wrestling with those tensions of wanting to transform and transcend or transcending, but being confined to being a researcher human and I'm trying to write a dissertation. So that's me.
Thank you. Hilary, do you want to say, maybe connect up with that, with the talking about I, or can I even say I as a way of introducing you?
Well, I mean, I wrote, I'm sitting at my desk, the door's open, I'm inside, but the outside is also inside because the wind from the sea is blowing in, the bushes, the dune bushes are outside. I'm very connected to the outside. And having written that, I kind of wonder how one talks about oneself as connected when I is only part of the engagement of being connected with everything else. It's not a separate entity. And language kind of signals I as a separate human entity. So it's just, yeah, how does one say it in a post-human-y kind of way?
Yeah, and just to say that you've also got a message earlier, no, up above here. My fan is the sea breeze and my music is the sound of the sea as I'm sitting at my desk. And then you follow that up. Can I even say I?
Yeah.
Yeah. Maybe someone can connect with this. But as I said, you know, I mean, I know Hilary wouldn't mind speaking. I assume, but maybe I assumed wrong. I wouldn't, no. But I wouldn't ask anyone in particular to say something, but people who wouldn't mind.
So let me connect that question with what Joanna was saying, you know, that kind of language imperfect as it is what we've got. And of course, all sorts of things are coded into the pronoun system, including a distinction between he and she, as though those are the only two possible gender distinctions anyhow. And what is the I in you know, like post-qualitative or post-humanist research? How does one even talk about the I? And should one be talking about the I as a sort of separate individual person? You know, that's what the language does. It cuts it off from everything else.
Fabulous question, Hilary. I've got two people had the hand up, so it's Sadiq and Sumaya. I wonder whether Sumaya was first, but first, like new, is not necessarily you have to go first. I don't know, maybe you can make a decision about what would be the most relevant or helpful connection, generative connection at this point.
Sumaya.
Okay. Hi, Sadiq. Good to see you. Okay. So I sent my picture to Annika and to Karen, but I'm just going to move my iPad so you can see kind of what my picture is about. It's this very messy setup. It's my daughter's sort of tools and electrical gadgets. She's doing engineering and she's trying to create an electronic, well, a remote control spider. And as I was looking around for an object, it kind of struck me that whenever we introduce ourselves, we tend to ascribe, well, labels, you know, or I'm a doctoral student, or I work as a lecturer, or, you know, and I wanted to really break away from it. I didn't want the I to be in there. And when I saw her box of gadgets and other, whatever, electrical paraphernalia, I just thought that's kind of where I am and how I feel, that I'm always sort of thinking in motion, because, you know, making something, taking it apart, and everything's quite messy. I feel very messy. And when I looked at her spiring, you know, there's a mask there, and then she's got this lovely diffuser, and all of those are just so part of what she's trying to do. So that's who I want to introduce myself as, someone that's very much part of things. There is no I. I'm just work in motion. That should be my name.
There is no I. Okay.
Except, Maya, you just said, this is where I am and what I feel. I'm very messy. So, you know what? Avoid the I.
I'm just going to blame that on language. The fact that is just so part and parcel, and I can't get out of it. And maybe just use terms like I, you know, posthuman I.
It is,
but there is no I.
Well,
and it is the language that makes us use it.
Let's take that concept of I for a walk for the coming 3 days, right? Because subjectivity and Joanna, but I'm aware that Siddiq was next. Siddiq, is it okay to hold on, or is your point directly related, or your comment?
It's fine. Joanna wants to respond to Sumaya.
Okay.
So good.
I see it on her face as well. You know, there's a kind of, I really want to talk about this one. Go on.
Yeah, hesitation though for stepping in front of Siddiq. But just what Sumaya was saying, and the little exchange there about language with Hilary, and the I, often in communities of inquiry, Karen, we have had a conversation about how sometimes in conversation, in dialogue, there is a falling into the we as well. So people will say, well, we live in a situation where, or we live in a society, or we tend to believe that. I'm just thinking about, how these pronouns, I mean, people have written about this, haven't they? My friend Natalie Pollard, who's kind of around this conversation as well, has written about the pronoun, not the pronoun, but pronouns and the work that they do. And thank you, Sumaya. Lovely to see you. You. Is it you? This is making me laugh as well. You know, how you then try to think, how can you, I, we talk without those pronouns? And it's not just the I, is it?
We could always go back to the third person neutral of old scientific inquiry.
Yeah, I'm really going to hand over to Siddiq. I'm going to go to Siddiq first. Yeah.
Okay, thank you. Okay, thank you. Firstly, I'm thinking about we as opposed to I, and just a little bit of a background. I'm renovating my house at the moment, so I brought a whole lot of junk from my house, and it's kind of sitting in my office. And as I was sitting here this morning, I was thinking about my father, my dear departed father. He died in 2005, so some time back. He was an optometrist, and when you asked to look around, I looked around me and I heard, and there's 3 objects here that are directly related to him. And yesterday we were speaking about ancestor worship. You know, in this part of the world, in South Africa, ancestors live with people. I mean, they're real. It's not like, you know, this abstract thing that happened in the past. I mean, ancestors are present. So in this way, and so, yeah, and I can't really explain it, but I'm thinking about past, I'm thinking about we, as in me and mine, or him and his. I'm also thinking about things like religion and what has been passed down to me. So let me show you. So remember, my father, well, I was brought up in a kind of it's a Muslim household, but it wasn't a traditional Muslim household by any means. It was quite a-religious, if you will. So my first exhibit is a pig that my father kept in his practice. He was an optometrist. And when I took it from him, it had 4 legs, but it's lost 2 of its legs. And what I loved about this pig was that the ears broke off, but he put, there were 2 of the, what are these things? The ears were, you know, this part of the glasses, the nose pads of the glasses are the pig's ears. So the nose are the ears, and the pig is me. And then connected to that, talking about religion and my father, we've had this beautiful piece of art in my household growing up, which is a whole lot of Hindu deities. It's all Hindu gods, which I think he got in India, but it lived in my Muslim household for many years on the wall, proudly. And then lastly, I want to show you this other thing that's lying right next to me. So this, my father was into stained glass. And this was the first and last piece of stained glass that he made, which was actually on our front door. Our front door had you know, it had a glass piece to it. So he took that glass piece out and he put this in. And what it is it's my name in Arabic, Siddiq. So I'm not sure which way to look at it. Anyway, it's left to right or right to left. It's Arabic. So yeah. So those are my 3 pieces. But the pig is the main one.
Wow.
Thank you.
Joanna had her hand up.
Yeah, but you also wanted to come in?
Okay. Hi, everyone. I'm Teresa. I've just flown in from Joburg. Very, very happy to be here and see you all and be with some of the people in the pictures. When I walked into the house, I saw an artwork and it kind of suddenly I thought, oh, I'm sure that's a Sydney Khumalo artwork. And with this, the talking about the I and the non-I, but also interestingly, Sadiq showing us an artwork. What's so interesting is that, in a way, I kind of get the sense that this artist has made, you know, the material speak. I mean, it's a beautiful wooden sculpture of a person, and it's got its own message. But because the artist was a very strong presence in the art world and developed a kind of a very unique style, we can recognize the I. I mean, we can recognize, so I'm trying to get a sense of that it's maybe the both and. So it's both the strong I of the artist who has a very particular way with wood and is recognizable across. I mean, he was working, I think, in Johannesburg in the 60s, if I'm not wrong, at Polly Street. He worked with Cecil Scottness and various people. So he's a well-known artist, and his presence, you know, spoke to me through the object.
So you can see that Anneke is filming the sculpture. Yeah, the sculpture there.
and then it's got a standing person, and there's like this head at the bottom lying on the plinth. That's the whole thing.
You know,
Thanks, Annika.
I've never noticed that, and I've passed that like for 10 days and not noticing. Wow, thank you. Okay, we've got 3 minutes left, and I haven't even said anything about the project, and we have. Joanna, you still, but there are some people who might want to say something, and otherwise I'm just going to point at what I was going to sort of refer to, and then you can do it yourself. So yeah, I don't see any hands up. Okay, so I'm just going to share my screen, and if I can find it, probably not too much going on. Oh God, where is it? This one? Yeah, no, that's not the one. Okay. Can you see the Post-Qualitative Research Collective on your screen?
Yes.
Yeah? Okay, great. So what I'll do is make this smaller. And just to say a little bit, and I hope that the way of introducing, also the way it sets the tone and the way we will get to know each other, and hopefully, you know, a lot of you will be able to stay as we go along or come back, return, and on the different days. And what I just need to, what might be helpful to know is that here's a research collective, and part of the research collective is also, you can read it up on here, but also in the invitation, but we can send it to everyone who was registered, is exactly what the objectives are and how we're going to work, continue to work for the next 2 years, because it's a 3-year research project, and you will hear more and more about it in the coming days as well. One of the objectives is the book series, and we've already got 2 resources which will be launching on Friday, and Hannah Shakespeare from Routledge is going to do a talk. Oh, wait a minute, there's a navigating, and there's also the glossary which we will be launching. And then of course there are the events, and this morning we already had the first one of this seminar of the returning seminars, and we're hoping to run many more which are about returning, so PhD researchers returning to their PhD research, and in conversation with Dr. Roseanne Reynolds. And here you can see also the other returning. Here they are. These are the ones that we've had, the disposable mask methodologies, and this one here. So you can see also the videos of these past events, and here will also be videos. And on these posters, you can see some of the events that we're going to organize. So Viv, Nikki and Tammy are going to run a workshop on getting in through water. And these are the PhD research I just referred to. And Jane Osgood and Sid Mohandas are going to present something on undoing the academic publishing machine. And there is, of course, much more. Here's the book series. And this afternoon, we're going to start with a workshop on returning and on questioning. So I hope to see you around. One of the major outcomes of this research collective is to set up parts of, or maybe even an entire online course in post-qualitative research. You can be completely involved in that. That's really what we're going to look at as part of the program as well. And if anyone hasn't got the program, please get in touch with Annika Slabbert. I was going to go through that, but obviously we haven't had time for that. And that's also, I think, is so valuable and very moving, actually, also the way you were engaging with each other and with material. And I don't know whether I started with this session, but the other, for me, this is a real meeting. It's a meeting with other humans, but also meeting with the other than human. And I suggest that we're going to go for a break now, unless there are some urgent, red hot comments. We'll save the chat. We'll save, Annika will be posting these recordings to people who have registered. And the program is on the website, says Annika, brilliant. So go and have a look at the website, and we'll see you around as the seminar unfolds. And with your help, we couldn't do it with everybody's participation. So thank you for now. Have a nice break, and we'll be back at 12. Let me know if anything has been forgotten. I think, Annika, you probably need to shut the room.